going, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. And in this video, I'm going to be doing a recap, a little different. I want to switch it up every now and then. And this is going to be a recap from March 10th, in which I ended up trading Boeing and Tesla. I took 5 trades and made $1,086 on the day. And before we get into that, just a couple things I want to talk about. Number one, I have made a change in my style, still similar scalping strategy, but the one thing that I have done very differently and that has really allowed me to do pretty well over the last handful of weeks is just wait. So really waiting for things to shake out off the open. I'm watching all my stocks in unison, also watching SPY and Qs, and then when the market finally shows a very clear direction, I scalp trend. One of the big things that I was doing not that long ago was taking very quick patterns off the open. And in 2021, the environment kind of changed. So I would notice that when those quick patterns would happen, they wouldn't follow through, whether it was to the upside or the downside, they would kind of stuff or stop going lower. So I made that change to let things do what they have to do off the open. And then when things are very clear and they choose a direction, then look for trades. And even though there's been plenty of opportunities to take quick trades off the open, right now, I just feel better about waiting a little bit, and because of that, I've been extremely consistent lately. And the next thing that I want to talk about is kind of being a master of one. You're going to see, not only in this video, but in a lot of the videos prior and moving forward, I trade Tesla almost every single day. It's one of my favorite stocks to scalp, and I strongly believe that if you take the big world of the stock market and you make it very small, trading becomes easier. When I stopped focusing on the biggest movers or the biggest gappers up and down each day, and I really started to pay attention to a small group of names, and then obviously my favorite out of that group being Tesla, that's when I started to become consistent. When you focus on just a handful of names, you really get a good idea as to how they move. And then when you understand that, you know your spots, and then you obviously have to figure out what works best for you. And that a lot of times is what can turn things around. And whether you're new to my videos or you've been watching them for a while, I think it just goes to show that you can be a master of one, and that one for me is Tesla, and I can make money very consistently trading it. The stock market is a very complicated thing, and when you pinpoint your focus, it's amazing the things you can do. That was the biggest downfall at the beginning of my trading journey. It really is true that less is more. Now, with that being said, let's get into the technicals, starting with SPY. So this was a pretty nasty dip. And it was hard to tell how far down this was going to go. I know a lot of people probably thought this was going to go a lot further, but what happened? It stopped going down. It reclaimed the 50 SMA, got above the 9, got above the 20, and this was a pretty decent candle on the 9th. So some of the levels that I was looking at was that prior day's high, 389.91. If it gets above that, looks like we're going to a new all-time high. And now looking at the Qs. So these definitely got more beat up than the SPY. Looked like this was going to go lower, eventually found some support right around 300, put in a nice candle on the 9th, reclaimed the 9 EMA. Not always, but when the 9 EMA can get reclaimed, sometimes that can create kind of a new active sequence to the upside. So the level that I was looking at was prior day's high, 313.73. Gets above it and stays above it. This looks like this has room to the upside. And now Boeing. So this just showed some relative strength, had a pretty nice push, pulled back to the 9, the 20, held them. Had a nice candle on the 9th, thought that there was more upside room just because of the strength that it's been showing recently. So some of the basic levels that I was looking at was prior day's high, 234.06. This pivot high area, 237.10. Had no idea if it was going to get there, but just knowing where it is on the chart. And then pre-market high, 236.57. And now Tesla. So this was really beat up on the daily. Came from right around 900. Finally found some support right around 550. Was very extended to the downside. Felt like it was just a matter of time before it was going to have a snapback trade. Who knows if we go back to highs soon, but just knowing that that was very oversold, so some sort of retracement move. And then on the 9th, the day prior, had a very big candle, which looked really good. Got back above the 9 EMA. So some of the basic levels that I was looking at was a possible second day continuation trade. So prior day's high, 678.09. It was gapping above that in the pre-market or ended up trading above that. And then also pre-market high, 706.06. And then also knowing that the 20 SMA on the daily was above. So I do mark where those moving averages are, if they are support or resistance, because I just want to know where those areas can be, because a lot of times you'll see stocks that reject those areas. So I make sure that I color coordinate those moving averages on my chart so that way on the 1 minute I can see them. Okay, so the first trade is on Boeing, and something you may notice is that my order entry window is empty and a lot of price action has gone by. So we're about 33 minutes into the open and I have yet to take a trade. Now there was some decent setups on Boeing. There was a really quick flag pattern right around 236. I just didn't feel that great about it, and recently, being that I have not been taking trades quick off the open, I've just felt better about waiting a little bit. And then obviously this went straight up and went without me. So now it was just about waiting for a little bit more consolidation. Does this get back to the highs? And if it does, that would be a setup I'm interested in. And that's exactly what happened. So it pulled back a little bit, got under VWAP, reclaimed VWAP, has reclaimed the short-term moving averages, and the high of day right now is 237.99. And if it breaks that, I want to go long. And I go long right there. I'm trading 4 contracts. That's now my standard size. So I took 4. I got filled at 426, got a nice break. And now I want to give this a chance just to see if it can run. So got a pretty quick move. I'm up on the contracts, but now just in the back of my head, knowing that I don't want to let them go red because the breakouts recently haven't had that much follow through. And you can see I got out of that really quick. So had a really nice push through 238 and instantly came back in. I was probably a little antsy and got out of that premature, but I would just rather be safe at this point. So I ended up getting out for a very tiny win on this scalp. And yes, Boeing ended up going further, but what I wanted to see was get up to 238.50, break through 238.50, get to 239, really get going, and then get out of the trade. I definitely could have executed a little better. Had I got an entry right around 237.50 instead of getting a little late, I probably wouldn't have been so antsy and I would have made a little bit more on the trade. But when it started to come in, I just cut it because I know that I can always reevaluate the setup later. I don't want to hold something and have it pull back and then take a quick loss, especially on my first trade of the day. And the next trade is going to be on Tesla. So obviously had to gap up, nice strong push, quickly gave it back, started to work its way back to highs. I really wanted to see this get to 717.85, have a little bit of consolidation, and then break for a higher move. It did not do that. It pulled back in, got back below VWAP, and now this is forming a very big wedge pattern. Low of day is 691.54. If it breaks that, I felt like there was some downside room. And the big difference with here and the trades that have been working lately is what I talked about prior, really waiting for more data. I mean, this is clearly showing that Tesla is having an issue. And if it breaks low a day, there should be some sort of reaction. How far down it goes after the fact, I have no idea. And right here, Tesla's starting to show some weakness. Also knowing that that technical level, low of day, 691.54 is below. If it breaks that, it looks pretty good for a scalp. So I have the 690 puts loaded, trading 4. I end up getting filled right there. Got filled at 22.38. And now I just want to see this start to speed up. And then when it does, get out of the trade. It does take a minute, but it just broke low of day. So I know if there's anybody long, just from a shorter term perspective, they're probably going to want to get out the moment this starts to go lower. And then when the tape really starts to speed up, that's where I'm going to get out of it. So right now, takes out 691, looks pretty good. Coming into the whole number, tape really started to speed up, has a bit of a bounce off 690, also knowing there's numerous red candles in a row, and I end up just getting out of the trade right there for a pretty quick scalp. So Tesla is now obviously below low of day, and it feels like this chose a direction, so now I just want a scalp trend. And right here, this looks like a very quick flag pattern. Low of day is 687. The moment that I start to see some weakness, I want to get into some puts. So I have the 685s loaded, and it starts to show some weakness right here. Tape started to speed up a little bit. So I end up getting short, and I take 4 puts. I got filled at 21.46. And now any sort of quick move I get, I just want to take those profits. The moment it starts to slow down, I just want to get out of the trade. And right there, started to bounce a little bit, and I get out for a very small win. And yes, it did continue to go lower. I know if I was a little bit more patient, I had a chance to make a lot more money. But we never know where the bottom is and where Tesla can bounce. And when Tesla does bounce, it has very aggressive bounces. I've been caught in those before, especially on the short side. So whenever I get the quick move and then it just starts to slow down a bit, I prefer to just get out and then wait for the next setup. And then here's the next trade on Tesla. So clear downtrend, and now I just want to continue to scalp it. And if you can see on my chart, the 678, that was the gap fill area. So I had that on my chart just so I knew where it was. And now it's coming into 682. Looks like a very quick flag again. And when I mean a flag, it's just some sort of green candle in between. So that way I know that if it breaks the low of that, there's the possibility of it going lower. So I end up getting short. I took 4 contracts, filled at 21.71. And now I just want to see, does this have a chance to fill that downside gap? It did end up bouncing a little bit, but still very weak and under the 9 EMA, and then eventually takes out these 2 green candles. And then the moment it goes underneath it, I end up just getting out pretty quick because it's getting close to that gap fill area. You never know when it's going to stop. I always like to take the quick profits, so I ended up getting out right there for a decent win. So here's the last trade on Tesla. So as you can see, that candle pushed up, failed, gets to 680, and then I think if it breaks that, it does have a chance to fill the gap. So I ended up going short again, took 4 contracts, filled at 22.89, and now I want to see this get to that 678 area. Right there showing some clear weakness. Saw a lot of prints go through on the time and sales, and now it has filled the gap. So now I want to give it a chance. Can it go just a little bit further? Looking at the whole number, 678 on the level 2, there was some size. I want to see if it can break it. If it does, I'm going to get out of this trade. A little bit of size on the bid, nice move lower, and I end up getting out of the trade right there for a really quick win. And that was the last trade of the day, and I was kind of super scalping. The longest I was in a position was maybe a minute. A lot of these hold times were right around 30 seconds. The moment it would break, I get the quick move, I just take it. And 5 trades for me is a decent amount. When I get to that number, I know that if I continue to trade, there's a really good chance that I will start giving profits back. So I ended up calling it a day. So now let's look at the portfolio. Ended up making $1,086, which is great, and majority of that came from Tesla to the downside. Tesla is my favorite stock to scalp. It's been great to trade both ways recently. Hopefully you've been taking advantage of it. Thanks for watching the video, and I'll see you in the next one.